King of Detroit Hockey is back with another video. I want to introduce my dog. This is Furzy. He's a Havanese. I named him after Grand Fuhrer because he's half black, half white. Get it? Like Furzy. So this is Furzy. Good boy. Anyway, King of Detroit Hockey is back with another video. And I wanted to touch on some things that I thought were important, like stereotypes. So I thought it was funny, some of the stereotypes I heard over the years about black people, and even the stereotypes that I had about white people. And I always thought it was funny that one of the stereotypes that you would think, I don't know if this would be a stereotype or not, but you would think that Akil Adams from East Grand Boulevard and Mac would land hockey, being black. Where did most of the racism come from that I would have encountered as a player or as a hockey player? You would think it would have been from the white players that I played against. I had a few incidents, but most of my racism came from my own community. It came from black people. Black people calling me white because I played hockey. Black people calling me white because of the way I spoke when I didn't even like watermelon, which is funny because it's just too much work. All the seasons, I just never was a big fan of it. But a lot of black people do like watermelon. But again, most of the racism I received came from, or negative, I would say as racism, it came from black people. My family, extended family, my immediate family was cool, but my extended family, they always had something to say about me playing hockey and not being supportive. Never came to any games, never came to any practices. I might have had maybe one aunt, my aunt Davida, she might have came once, but most of them didn't. Most of them were jealous. Most of them had something negative to say. And people in the black community always had, black girls always called me white, always had something to say, and always had some, just some kind of white comment about me playing hockey, or about playing hockey, and about speaking properly, and about, just not falling into what everybody else was doing. But I just had a different upbringing. I had good parents. My parents wouldn't let me speak orally around the house. It just didn't happen. My mother was always on me about that. I mean, we didn't have some of the things that, we didn't do a lot of the things that we ate well. I mean, we just didn't eat fried chicken and watermelon and shit all the time. Fried chicken was like a reward. We didn't have it that often. My mother never really fried. She doesn't even, before she died, God rest her soul, she didn't even like fried chicken. I used to have to beg her on my birthday, I would love, because I loved her fried chicken, but she never made it. So like I said, growing up, I didn't have that. So one of the other things I thought was funny was like, I used to hear about, the season would be winding down, whatever season it would be. And I don't remember this happened in North Dakota that much, but I know it happened in the O a little bit. But at any rate, it would always be like, well, I would hear things like, the season winding down, you're talking about going home, and everybody's getting homesick or talking about home. And one of the things I used to hear, well, I heard it kind of often, was, and a lot of the times it was from the Canadian players, not necessarily the American players, but mostly the Canadian players. And I'd be like, yeah, I can't wait to get home. Like, yeah, Shaq, you really can't wait to get home, eh? Get back on the front porch with the barbecue pit and the sofa, eh? Oh, that's what you guys do, eh? Sofa on the front porch, I bet you got one. I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't grow up with no sofa on the front porch. I was like, what is that? What do they mean, sofa on the front porch, barbecue pit? But anyway, I kept hearing it. So one summer I came back home and I started looking around my neighborhood, and I was like, damn, they were right. Everywhere I look, it's a motherfucker got a sofa and a front, and excuse my language, but it's somebody with a sofa and a barbecue pit on the front porch in my neighborhood. I couldn't believe that, but it was true. They had to tell me that though, because I really didn't know. I didn't see that because we didn't have a sofa on the front porch or a barbecue pit. But I guess that stereotype is true. I just wasn't raised that way. But everybody else in my community did. I mean, I'm telling you, it was really easy to find that. The other stereotype was about, black people used to have a stereotype about white girls. They even made a song about it, like Sir Mix-a-Lot, I like big butts. White girls got plenty of ass and always have. And one thing about Liggett is those girls were beautiful. A lot of them were absolutely gorgeous. But you didn't want to say that because it was still kind of like this unacceptable thing, intermingling races or whatever. But I'm just being honest. Those girls a lot of them were unbelievably hot. I mean, not every one of them, but a lot of them, most of them. The other thing is when I was in Iowa, those girls had the fattest. They made that stereotype not true. It was just not true. I just didn't see that. I was like, oh man, this guy made a whole rap song about it. And the whole community thinking it wasn't true. It really wasn't true. So there's some stereotypes that are true. Like, I like fried chicken. I really do. That might be a stereotype. But I think everybody likes fried chicken, to be honest. Like, you go to Cracker Barrel, it's not just black people eating it. It's everybody. But I do like it. So that stereotype is true. What's funny is that when I was in the American League, my roommate was Ashley Buckberger, and he used to laugh about it because guys would be, giving me the word business about, some of these black stereotypes, like eating fried chicken, right? So he was my roommate. Every day I would come home from practice, I would stop at Bojangles and get a box, 12, 15 pieces of chicken. I would bring them back, and I would put them in the kitchen, and Bucky, what was he's called, Ashley Buckberger, he used to always say, like, he would be laughing, he'd be like, you get it every day. You get it every day. Like, I was like, yeah, man, I know I can't stop. It's just like it's on a kryptonite. I love fried chicken, man. But I mean, some stereotypes are true, others aren't. But overall, I think people are people, and everybody's got cultural differences, to some degree. But one thing I do want to say is that don't think that black people ever respected or encouraged me or were ever receptive or ever encouraging. They just weren't. They all hated on what I was doing. But was just playing hockey. I was a sellout. I was white. I grew up in the suburbs. Apparently, East Grand Boulevard and Mac is in the suburbs, and I said, I guess that's where I grew up because I had good parents. So I experienced a lot of that from my own community. Anyway, getting back to the story, address this stereotype thing just a little bit, but so I'm at Liggett, and I think I told you guys, like, finished the season, and I didn't hear that our star player was going to be going to college anywhere, which I was expecting to hear. It didn't happen, and it made me, basically panic and talk to my parents, and we ended up leaving Liggett and going to Bishop Gallagher in Harper Woods. That's where I ended up. And after I left Liggett and went back to play AAA, I think it was my midget minor year with the Michigan Nationals, and with the great Pete Slater, my all-time favorite coach. And he was a great coach. Now I got some stories about him as we go. But I also got a chance to meet Chris Slater, his son. Let me tell you, for you guys who did not know Chris at that time, he was one of the best players I had ever seen. Chris was so good. He could skate. He could handle the puck. His communication. Let me tell you a funny story about Chris. Now I'm kind of jumping around here, but a couple years passed. We go to I believe it was World Juniors. It was either 17s or World Juniors to try out. So I ended up making it to Lake Placid. So I'm up there with Slater, Chris. Then we're in a scrimmage. Now, these are the best players in the country now, so don't get this. This kid was unbelievable on defense. I remember when Slater I was a face-off in the defensive zone. He got the puck, rushed the puck up the ice, got to the blue line, didn't like what he saw, reversed the puck backwards, skated backwards, regroup, regroup, regroup. Went back behind the net, rushed the puck again, and almost scored. I'd never seen anybody do that. No, and I still don't see too many. I mean, maybe NHL guys, but we were like 17. This guy was unbelievable. Anyway, so leaving Liggett, he was one of the players I played with. The great Dennis Wright, one of the toughest kids. Dennis Wright was so tough, but this is the thing. He was huge. I was 15. I was just starting to grow a little bit because I was small going until I like hit about 11th grade. So I'm in the 10th grade this time, so I'm still kind of small. Dennis Wright had to be every bit of 6'2" and over 200 pounds. I don't know where, but he was big. He was like, he looked like he was 25. That's what he looked like. And he was an absolute animal if he wanted to be. But he also had a whole lot of skill. Shoot the puck well, hands well. He was another one that communicated well. Richard Keys was on that team, another kid that ended up playing at Michigan State. So off that team, and this is when we were 15. It was Dennis Wright, Chris Slater, Richard Keys, myself. I got to send out a shot to Chris McAllister because I thought Chris McAllister was a very good player. But we had some good players. I don't think Stoller was on the team. But anyway, so we had a pretty good team, but a very undisciplined team. And more of this is about what I started to develop. But again, I didn't really develop. I'm still kind of playing forward, but not scoring, not developing. Just an up and down the wing, being very physical, always getting in the fight. Here's another thing that used to happen. I got a bad temper when I was younger. It was really, really bad. And I ran around a lot, because I wasn't really a goal scorer when I was younger. I was more of a physical, aggressive, checking forward. And I worked really hard, but I didn't understand the game at that point because I didn't see it that well at forward, but I did know how to, hit. So I was running around a lot and occasionally would get called the N-word, but it didn't really happen that much. I'm telling you, it really didn't. And when it did, what I would do was lie about it because I would run somebody from behind or something dirty. Because I'm from Jack Adams, we played dirty. So I would do something dirty and get a penalty. My coach would be like, Akil, what's going on? Mr. Slater would say something. I'm like, hey, he called me the N-word. He really didn't. You're hearing my dog because my brother's coming out. But a lot of the times, I didn't. Nobody ever called me the N-word. I just used that to get out of being undisciplined because that's what I was doing. I was just running around, and I didn't mind slashing guys. I mean, I grew up playing in Detroit, and what we learned in Jack Adams was how to play dirty. And it took a while to figure out that that's not the way, right? So I'm still in that phase, playing that kind of style, like a rock'em sock'em, up and down the wing, fight, check. But you can't fight when you're 15, but I would want to fight everybody all the time. So I was always getting penalties and getting in trouble. As the season goes on, I did okay, but I got a little bit better. But again, I'm still playing forward, right? So Chris, because he's so good, got drafted and went to junior A at 16. The next year, he went to junior. Dennis Wright, the next year, went to junior. Keys came back, and I came back. So again, I'm at Bishop Gallagher, much different school than Liggett. I'm just gliding through school because it was not anywhere near a challenge as it was at Liggett. School was basically like going to elementary school compared to the curriculum and the expectations at Liggett and then going to Bishop Gallagher. I never had a problem with school again. I learned so much at Liggett that I never had an issue with school again. So school's going good, real good. So anyway, the next year I'm turning 16, I get my license, and we come back to the Michigan Nationals again. We get a little bit of a stronger team because now we got guys we're midget majors, so we can get guys that are 18 or, going, I think they were 18, 17, 18. And, I was 17 at the time. No, 16. I was 16 at the time. But we had, that team that next year, I believe Keys came back. Mike Flatt was another one. He was really tough, too. Eric Bilyeu was on that team. Pretty decent. He was pretty decent. And then, but we had a pretty good team our 16 year. So I'm struggling at forward again. I'm not really scoring, but I'm on the team mainly because of my speed, and I was aggressive, and I was pretty physical, and you know that's kind of why I got on the team, because of my speed and I think my physicality. But the years going on, and I'm not really impacting the scoreboard. I'm not getting on the scoreboard, and I'm still getting penalties. So as the year is going, this is early in the year. Mr. Slater, Coach Slater, the great Pete Slater, said, "Akil, I got to talk to you." He had two talks with me that changed my life. The first one was that you got to play D. Me? I was still thinking that I'm pretty decent, but I wasn't. So at least they had to make a change. So they're like, "Hey man," he's like, "Akil, you're gonna have to play defense." I haven't played defense since I think my first year of hockey. First year of hockey I played defense. So I didn't know anything about defense really. But I grew up watching the Edmonton Oilers. I grew up a Paul Coffey fan. I grew up a big Edmonton Oilers fan, but I'm a huge Paul Coffey fan back when I was younger, right? That's what I thought defense was supposed to be like. So here I am with this. I have world-class speed, or I did back then. I don't really find too many guys that were as fast as me. And anyway, so I'm moved back to D. Not on my choice, but because it was either play D or you're off the team. The great Pete Slater, that was his ultimatum. Play D, you're done. So I go back and I play D. All of a sudden, when I went back to defense, the game was different. I could see the game differently. And people couldn't handle me. You dumped the puck in, I was so fast that I could get back there before anybody and give myself a lot of time. Then I was so fast that now I'm attacking you, but you're coming at me. When you play forward, you don't get that a lot. Everybody's kind of like next to you. I'm coming up and guys are coming at me. Again, I had a lot of skill that I didn't know how to use at forward. But I went to the stick handling school, Turk Hostin stick handling school when I was younger. I played hockey all the time, so my hands were pretty decent. So all of a sudden, I started learning how to rush the puck, and I was burning everybody going up the ice. People will go back and tell you those stories. That's not something I'm making up. I was a monster on defense as an offensive defenseman. We had this midget showcase in Toronto. I was on the all-tournament team. It changed everything. I did so well on defense that's what got me drafted in the USHL. That's what got me drafted in the North American League. That's where I got invitations to the 17 team. That came from defense, not forward. So I have to thank Mr. Slater to this day. If it wasn't for him, my career probably would have been over. Because I wasn't doing well at forward. I really wasn't. But going back to D changed all that. So, I guess the next video will be talking about what happened after that. But basically, that change from forward to defense put more years onto my career and really propelled me to a higher level. I never imagined that I would ever be playing defense, but I ended up going back to D. And things went really well from that point on as a defenseman for me. But it all started with Mr. Slater making that ultimatum: either you play D or you're off the team. People probably don't know that, but that's what happened. The other thing that Mr. Slater talked to me about was my temper, right? So we're in a showcase in Toronto. I think it was in Burlington. And I started the game at forward. This is, again, I'm still playing forward at this time. This is before I got moved back to defense. And it was like in Canada, those tournaments are a big deal in those small little towns like Burlington or whatever, and mayor comes and it's like a big ass deal for the first game, the opening game. And I think we had the opening game. I get out there, I'm playing the wing. This might have been a year before. I think this was when the midget, because Dennis was on the team. So this is another talk that he had with me, but he ended up having this talk later with me. But this is the kind of stuff that I would do. So the game started. I think right off the hop, I cross-checked the guy that was on the wing with me. Then I slashed him. Then I ran him. Then he got nasty back with me, and I just started punching him. So then Dennis jumped in. It was just an all-out melee. So the coach comes across the bench, attacks Mr. Slater. He's trying to show us lead by example and not fight. He's getting pummeled by this other coach. Dennis goes over to help him on the bench. It was just an all-out brawl. Did I start it? I started that whole thing. And I said, oh, he called me the N-word. That was my favorite go-to. It was always an out. All I had to do was say that, and then everybody was like, oh, he did? Oh, well, I can. No, it's no excuse for that. It never was. And as I got older, I really couldn't. I mean, I just didn't do it. I learned how to table that and use it later, if it ever happened, because most of the time it didn't. It was just an excuse that I would make because I had a bad temper. I didn't know how to. I didn't have discipline, and I just use it as a way to get out of the BS that I was starting, because I was naturally I had a short temper. I was very violent. I used to all my any conflict I had, I was always ready to fight. That was just, I guess, just in my blood, you know what I mean? But I had to learn how to get that under control. But it came from Mr. Slater talking to me that year about, hey, that was another thing he said. Again, I can't remember if it was my 15 year or my 16 year, or midget minor or midget major year, but I remember him coming down and talking to my dad, and he pulled us aside in a hotel in Burlington after I started that brawl. And he said, Akil, in front of my father too, he said, if somebody calls you a nigger again and you react, you're done. They're doing it to you because they're trying to get you off your game. And you're going for it every time, and we can't have that. You're hurting the team. So if you continue to do that, you're not going to play. That's why Mr. Slater was the best coach I ever had. He changed my position. I don't even know if that was on purpose, but it sure helped me. He got me to understand that that's not the way to play, and that's not the way to react. And then if I did do it, then I was going to be off the team. So he kind of forced me into having more discipline, being smarter about the way I played. And it really propelled me as far as my career went after playing for him for a couple years. The other thing about Mr. Slater is that he used to snap. And one of the things that he used to always do, and it was usually Chris that would piss him off. So he would just stop the practice, throw a stick in the stands, and just leave. Get in his car and drive back to Kalamazoo. On our team on the Michigan Nationals, half of our team was from Kalamazoo area, and the other half was from the Detroit area. So those kids were coming down all the time. But I don't know how Chris got home, but I know a couple times he just snapped and left. Old school. Kids couldn't handle a coach like that today, but he was just old school. But he was so knowledgeable about the game, and he was very good psychologically about. He got into my head. It really did. And Chris was an example of him. Chris was absolutely an amazing player at that age. At that age, I don't think anybody in the country was as good as Chris. Regardless of what happened, I just didn't see many guys that could do what he could do. And I didn't see many guys as tough as Dennis. And I didn't see many guys as skilled as Richard Keys. I was very good, very blessed to be able to play in that group of guys, with that group of guys, in that you would have a Jason Desluer. He was on that team, if you remember that. Drake, we played against each other. He was there. I'm trying to remember who else would have stuck out from that age group, the 74s that year. And Slater was like the biggest name. Slater had a press conference when he announced that he was going to Michigan State. I still to this day don't see that. I mean, it's 2024. I don't see many hockey players having press conferences announcing where they're going. And this is back in '92. That's how good Slater was. He was a G. He was a straight. That's a little bit of hood slang, but he was an absolute stud. He was so good. Crazy, but he was good. Very crazy. Took 5 showers a day, and all kind of weird shit, but he was absolutely phenomenal hockey player. That's another year when Mr. Newby, God rest his soul, because Corey Newby was on that team. Great guy, not a very good hockey player, just little, but a good guy. He brought in Maurice Hall from Alaska, and Brandon Carlson, for some kind of like, I don't know, but they came to Kalamazoo. That's the first time I ever met Maurice Hall. I got more stories about him too. But up until that point, going from Liggett and then going over to Michigan Nationals and then making that transition to defense, that's the path that I took. So I'm just trying to get that out there. Like, and in between that, let's not forget, I was always at home shooting pucks. I was always at home stick handling in the basement or outside. I was going to every drop-in that I could go to that I was able to get to. Then back then, it were like sometimes $5-10 you can go drop in. I would play with older guys. I played all the time. Played all the time. And that's how you get better. It's by repetition and playing. But you gotta love it, because I didn't even feel like it was work. I just loved the game. I loved to play. Every free moment I had, that's what I did. I remember when I won that, when I was placed on that all-tournament team in that showcase in Toronto, I got a free pair of rollerblades. I brought those boys to school. People at Bishop Valley might remember me rollerblading in the parking lot, because nobody had rollerblades at that time, and definitely not these, because these had a hockey boot. But again, the dedication to the game, I had it. I was absolutely dedicated. The one thing that I didn't do, which I'm going to get to later, was I didn't lift weights. I never lifted weights. I was always in good shape, always very strong, but my dad was more of a push-up, pull-up, sit-up, and we were just naturally good athletes, my brother and I. But it goes back to DNA. My dad was a good athlete. There's good athletes on that Adams side of the family. It didn't come from nowhere. So a lot of things came easy to me, like my speed. I never thought much about it. I didn't really work on it. What happened is I actually got some power skating lessons and got better at it. So the hard work was always there. I just want to mention that because it's always easy to tell a story and never really mention how much you actually put into the game. It was blood, sweat, and tears. Hockey is everything to me. Still is. But back then, it was everything. Completely 100% focused. I always played two sports too. But I started to suck at baseball. I got scared of the ball, so I ended up moving over to track my junior year. And again, I'm fast. I did pretty well in track. But always played two sports. Never really stopped playing hockey ever. It was always every day, all day, even in the winter, even when it rained. It was always 100% commitment. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. That's what these kids don't have now. They don't have it. They don't want to work. And I didn't even play in the NHL, but you won't even get nowhere near as far as I got. And you think it's easy. You think it's just so easy. It's so easy to play Division I. It's just so easy to go and leave a D1 scholarship on a paper and go to the OHL. Yeah, that's nothing. Anybody can do that, right? It still hasn't been done in 30 years. Put me some comments in my comments section. Let me know what you think about what I said about stereotypes. Please, let me know what you guys have played out there with the great Chris Slater. Please, put your comments in the comments section. Let me know what you think about the great Dennis Wright. Put it in the comments section. Let me know what you know about the great Richard Keys. I'm naming some guys that were absolute studs. Put your name, put your comments in the comments section. Holler at me about them, because those guys were absolutely studs. Put something in the comment section about the great Pete Slater, if you were fortunate enough to even ever play with him, or for him, or even meet him. He's a stand-up guy, great father, from what I can see from the outside. Although Chris was crazy, but at any rate, I mean, Mr. Slater was always an unbelievable person for me. And I like to hear what people have to say about that. And then again, that high school hockey was a great springboard back into AAA, because I never had a problem making a AAA team again. Before I went to Liggett, I did. But going to Liggett helped playing with older players. And that's why I was able to get back to AAA and still not be a scorer. But I was physically, I could handle playing with guys my own age, because I was playing against guys that were older, even though they weren't as good. But they're still older, and you still have that gap between ages when you're, that young. But at 14, you're playing against 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. So I still would recommend people do that, because it works. And it was another great experience for me because of what I was able to learn and experience when I was at Liggett. It is a life-changing experience. So that's what made me the person I am today. Again, please like, share, subscribe, comment. It's your man, Akil Adams, King of Detroit hockey. It's been 30 years. It's not looking good.